when you meet someone who has lost their significant other through death, that's not something that they chose to do. And so there's a lot of unresolved and unfinished feelings there. And as the person on the other side of that equation, that's really difficult to navigate. So I told her this only a few years later. I did a lot of reading around this. I tried to figure out, what were the feelings that she was going through, and what did that mean for me? What did that mean for our relationship?
Eyes open, hearts ready. Welcome to Wellness Deconstructed. I am Zia Jaffer, and together we're stepping into the arena of authentic well-being. Myth-busting, truth-seeking, and definitely life-changing. Break free, live boldly. It's time for a conscious uprising. Hello, and welcome back to Wellness Deconstructed. I'm your host, Zia Jaffer, and in the spirit of love, today we're talking to another couple that likes to call themselves the coaching couple. Welcome, Shalini and Amar.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here to talk about everything love.
Okay. No pressure.
No pressure at all. It's all about your experience that I would like you to share so that the audience can learn about different ways of falling in love, And today we're talking about finding love again. And it's something that's not been talked about enough, I feel like. And your story was so inspiring and so interesting when I heard it for the first time, so I wanted to bring you here.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you're right. We don't talk about finding love again because we don't think we can find love again. Yeah. I think you think once you found love once, that's it.
Yeah.
And if you've lost it for whatever reason, that's it.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in your 30s, 40s,
Yeah.
50s.
When you're much younger and then you lose it, you lose the love, and then you're like, okay, this is it, the end of my life, because that's one true love is gone. Like,
exactly.
Yeah. I feel like it's, I don't know if it's like a Bollywood movie kind of thing that, like you find love once and that's it, forever. But why don't we start with you telling us, like, what's your experience with love been?
So I was 21 when I met my husband, Jeremy. I was in England studying, and it was actually love at first sight. I saw him and I was like, wow, blown away. But he was everything wrong as far as my family was concerned. On paper, he was English, he was divorced, he was 19 years older than me, he had 3 children. So if you put him on paper, he was like the worst possible combination.
For your time.
So, but I fell in love with him, and we were together for 19 years. Wow. He was my soulmate. I loved him with all my heart. I was estranged from my family for 12 years because they wouldn't accept him. But I knew that he was right for me. So, yeah, we were together. We lived together in all ways. We were together. We were not actually married until he was diagnosed with cancer in 2014. And it was only after that we decided for legal reasons to get married because I don't believe in marriage. That's a whole other story. But we got married, and then 2 years after he was diagnosed, he died. And I was just 40 at that time, and I thought my life was over. Because at 40, who wants to go out with a widowed 40-year-old woman? And also, I didn't want to live. I couldn't see a life without him. Because I grew up with him. I was 21 years old. My formative adult years were with him. So after Jeremy died, I went through a really tough grieving process, and I was in England in the house that we were in for 3 years, and I just couldn't do it. It just wasn't serving me well. So I gave away most of my stuff. I rented the house out, and I started on a 3-year traveling world tour. And I came to Kenya first, because Kenya is where I was born and brought up. My family were here, and we just happened to meet at an event. And Ammar and I are actually childhood friends.
Oh, wow.
I'll let him tell you that part of the story. There's a cute part. You have to share that.
Oh, gosh. Here we go.
But this was the first leg of a 3-year journey. And I said, I'm not staying for you. I'm going. My first place is Italy. I'm going to meet a nice Italian man, drink lots of Chianti, learn Italian. And then COVID happened.
Oh.
and I was stuck here. She's saying, oh.
She says COVID happened. I say I happened. But...
Yeah. So look, COVID happened. The world closed. But I think, I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but I think I was going to stay because...
You haven't even told me that.
Yeah.
It's on record, guys.
The thing is, I didn't think I would find love again. And I wasn't looking for love. I felt like I'd had my love. 19 years with one person who I'd given my heart to. It's a long time. And I wasn't looking for it, but I was open. My heart was open. And it just happened. And how could I not love him? He's funny, he's kind, he's intelligent, and he made me feel whole again. And I don't think we say that enough. I think sometimes we're so feminist, we're so strong women. Why do we talk about a man completing us? But I really do believe that,
of course,
we complete each other. So I did stay, COVID or no COVID. But I'll let Ammar pick up the story about how he found love. So yeah.
So tell us, how did you find love? Was this your first time?
Yeah, I mean, my story is very different because I was, 42 when we met, I think, and I'd never really been in a proper long-term relationship. I dated a lot, but I'd never really found someone. And in some ways there was commonality because I'd also resigned myself to the fact that I was not going to meet someone and that my life was going to be, a series of relationships. But I was never really going to meet the person that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with.
He used to put people on probation.
You're still on probation, sweetheart.
Oh, really? We're 5 years in. He was like a month in and he'd be like, I'm bored of her.
I also used to get very bored very quickly. I was, in some way, always looking for a reason to get out of a relationship. And I don't know why that is, but it's just the way that it was. So when we first met, it was really interesting because, and Shalini alluded to it, we'd known each other as children. Our parents were family friends. My dad in particular had known both sides of her family since his childhood, and we grew up quite close to each other. Shalini is a couple of years older than me, so when she was early teens, or when I was just becoming a teenager, I had a massive crush on her. But it never really went anywhere. Obviously, we were kids, and then we lost touch because
not just that. You were 10 and I was 13. Too close. It would have been all wrong.
Just a kid.
Yeah, I was just a kid. Still sometimes am, apparently. But, so yeah, we lost touch when she moved away. I'd gone off to boarding school and then university, and I lived abroad for many years as well, in the UK, in the US, in the Middle East. But when we finally reconnected, something just clicked. And we started dating. We became friends first, actually. If you talk to my friends, they will tell you that I always got friend-zoned because I always found it very difficult
friend-zoned.
To kind of make my feelings known. But somehow I crossed that hurdle. We started dating. But yes, she was threatening to leave, to go away. We talked about how would that work and would we connect in other parts of the world, but COVID happened. And then very quickly things accelerated. You moved in with me, and then we moved out and got our own place together. We had a little bit of a rocky start as well. There was a point where she moved out and then moved back in. But in the end, it all worked out.
Yeah, we should talk about that because we don't talk about the rocky parts enough. And it was hard, I think, on both sides. One, I felt very guilty. I felt like I was betraying Jeremy.
That was going to be my next question. Like, how did you get over?
Yeah.
Embracing your feelings.
Yeah, it was hard.
Again.
It was like, am I betraying him? Am I betraying our memories? Am I betraying my marriage to Jeremy? But what people need to understand was he was gone and I still had life to live. And I felt that my father passed away 18 months after Jeremy, also from cancer. And I stood at my father's funeral and I thought both Jeremy and my father had fought this disease to live, and I wasn't living life to the full. I tried to take my own life. I was drinking too much. I was eating unhealthy foods. I was punishing myself in a way.
Your feelings.
I was numbing my feelings, absolutely. I was trying to fill a void that was internally by consuming stuff. I would watch TV for 20 hours a day because I couldn't sleep. So it was just, it was the way I grieved. But anyway, at my father's funeral, I realized that I needed to start living again. And I think that was a real turning point for me. I started dating again. I did loads of stuff. I built a cabin in Anuki in Jeremy's name. I drove a tuk-tuk around Sri Lanka. I did loads of fun stuff. And I learned to ride a motorbike because fear also had gone. Yeah. So I started living again. I started liking life again. And I started liking myself again. I did my fitness training. I started teaching my dance again. I wrote my first book. So I started living. And that's why I think we connected, because I was in a really good place when I met Ammar and I wasn't looking. But yeah, I think we went through a tough period when I think it was about a year into our relationship, because I now started feeling quite guilty about my feelings and loving somebody again. And Ammar, this was his first relationship, and he was very used to being at the beck and call of his family, an Indian family here in Nairobi. And I was not used to that, because in England, it was just me and Jeremy. He put me first, I put him first, we put our relationship first. That doesn't happen in Kenya.
Well, I think it was a couple of things. Interestingly enough, and we've never really talked about this, the first time we reconnected was at her dad's funeral. So there's a strange kind of synchronicity there, maybe. But
Like a cycle ending and
yeah,
And maybe starting,
Yeah.
possibly. Because it was 30 years since we'd
it was.
been seeing each other.
It was. But when we first started dating, like Shalini says, I hadn't been in a serious relationship. I was used to living my life on my own terms and without having to make space for someone else. And so for the first time, I found myself in a situation where I had to make space for someone else. And what that means is that other priorities have to shift.
totally.
And so making space can be really difficult when it's not something that you're used to. I hadn't been used to it. I had been single for my whole life, pretty much. And so there was some adjustment there. The fact that Shalini was also not used to it made that a little bit more difficult, I think. But also on the flip side, here I was falling in love with someone who still loved someone else. And that was really difficult as well.
Yeah.
And that was quite an angst-ridden time, I think, for both of us. I think Shalini was feeling her guilt, and I was feeling, I was questioning whether I was good enough, questioning if I was simply second best or something or someone that she was settling for. And so that was a difficult period for both of us. I think there was all kinds of energies and issues at play in that first year.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, how did you adapt to having someone and understanding that person and allowing that person to go through their process while knowing that, okay, you're not the first person for them, or like that it might not be as easy for them to adapt or accept?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Zia, and it's an interesting one, because I think it's not so much that Shalini had a history. I mean, at our age in particular, everyone has a history.
For sure.
But for the most part, that history is in some way a closed chapter.
Sure.
You've broken up with someone. I mean, I dated lots as well. I'd been with people. I had history. But my history was in my past, and those were doors that I'd closed and that I'd chosen to close.
Sure.
And in some case where I hadn't chosen to close them, if I'd been the one who'd been broken up with, I'd dealt with that and kind of moved on. When you meet someone who has lost their significant other through death, that's not something that they chose to do.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of unresolved and unfinished feelings there. And as the person on the other side of that equation, that's really difficult to navigate. So I told her this only a few years later. I did a lot of reading around this. I tried to figure out, what were the feelings that she was going through, and what did that mean for me? What did that mean for our relationship? And it did at one point. Like I said, Shalini moved out. We never really took time apart, because even after she moved out, we were still together and trying to figure this out and work on it and We went for counseling, and that's a whole different story. Find the right counselor, guys, because the wrong counselor can make things a lot harder.
Yeah, we didn't have a good counselor.
It wasn't right for us.
But it got us talking. That was the main thing. Even just to say our counseling is not working. This guy is not good. So just to pick up with what Ammar was saying, Jeremy will always be part of my life, and I will always love him. So I think you found that really difficult, and you felt that you was it was almost like being the third wheel in a relationship, because I would always have that relationship with Jeremy. So for me, it was very much having to explain to Ammar that I loved him with all my heart, and I do love him with all my heart. And it's just different. And there was no way we really had to work through that.
We did.
And he's the most important person in my life. And that's all that matters. And we wanted to create a life together. And that's what we're doing. We are creating a life together. We're not married. Another whole story about how I feel about marriage. But financially, emotionally, physically, in all ways, spiritually, we are so together and connected. And for me, that's what's important. And I see myself being with him for as long as our destiny allows us to be. And so I think once we both came to an understanding of where we were, that's when things began to get a lot better. We still fight. We should. It's good.
It's healthy. I feel like fighting is healthy every so often, so that you can get your stuff out of the way and resolve the conflicts rather than suppressing it.
Exactly. No, we still fight. We still have things to deal with. We still have to negotiate.
We do.
Our lives together.
But we also communicate. And I think that's the really important thing for us. Even in the fighting, it's not fighting for the sake of fighting. It's communication, passionate communication in a way, right?
I like how you said that. Passionate communication.
Yeah, we argue, we disagree, but we always come back and we always kind of talk through it and figure it out. She eventually realizes and agrees that I was right, even if it takes 6 months.
That's absolute rubbish. I don't know what it feels like to be wrong, by the way. So, what we haven't talked about is also Ammar was very much at the beck and call of his family and friends when I met you. So you didn't know how to put yourself and your relationship first.
I think I touched on it a little bit, right? Saying having to make space in your life is an adjustment. But yeah, I think to some extent, and I'm a firstborn son from an Indian family, grew up in Kenya. There are expectations and there are responsibilities and there are ways of being. And for a long time, the way that I'd derived my own self-worth was in the kind of the accolades of other people saying, that thing of if you put yourself first, you're a bad person.
You're selfish.
But if you put other people first, then you're a really good person.
Totally.
I believed that, right? So I would put other people first over and above myself. And so for the first time, it was, okay, I need to put myself first. I need to put this new person in my life first. That means putting other people second. And there's definitely a sense of adjustment that comes with that. I think it was hard for me. I think it was hard for my family. I think it was hard for some of my friends as well. But in the end, I think the most important thing is that a balance has been found. Definitely things have shifted. They're not the same. But we have a great relationship. We have a great relationship with my family. I don't spend as much time with friends as I used to, but then that's to be expected, right?
Yeah, totally.
I finish work. I don't want to go out drinking anymore. I want to go home and spend time with her. So things change and things shift.
Yeah, totally. I feel like in every relationship, once you enter that relationship, your priorities have to change. And it takes a period of time until you adjust and find your new normal. Because when you're on your own, you're just doing things without having to think twice about another human in your life, And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, it's not just me I have to think about. I have to think about this other person too. Not what just I want to do, like be there for my friends or go on the first call that I get, And I feel like it happens with all relationships. Even with us, I feel like in our relationship, we had to come together and understand that it's us that we have to prioritize.
Yes, yeah.
And for us to prioritize us, we had to prioritize ourselves individually first, do the work, understand what changes are required, not just in like the practical daily life activities, but also like the insides, like the internal shifts that need to happen in the way you think, in the way you make decisions, right? And that internal individualized growth helped our relationship further.
I think that's a really good point, because one of the things that really helped Ammar process things was he became an executive coach. You did a coaching course.
Well, it was a couple of things. I'd been on my own journey of self-development over years before we met and got together. But I think as I was forced to confront this issue of putting myself first, a lot of things shifted in my life. So I left the family business. I put my kind of career goals first. I put my health first. I lost almost 30 kilos in weight in the last 4 years. I started eating right. I stopped drinking. I stopped smoking. I started treating myself with more respect. And I think all of that played into our dynamic.
Of course.
Between each other, and then our dynamic is us and everyone else. And we definitely see ourselves in that way. It's perhaps controversial to say, but we see ourselves as a team.
Totally.
First, and then everyone else. And I think sometimes, again, not everyone gets that.
Yeah, I understand. It's because I feel like we belong, or we come from a culture that has to have like put family first, like you put your community first and then everyone else kind of thing.
But that's what we talk about, whether Kenyan culture, African culture, Indian culture, it's very much you're marrying into the family. It's not you're marrying the person, you're marrying it. I just find that a nonsense. It's nonsense, because you should not be living with with just prioritizing the extended family. You should be prioritizing each other. I know, Zia, you have children, so that's another whole conversation. We can't talk on that because we don't have children. But for us, if I don't put Ammar first and myself and our relationship first, it's not going to work.
And vice versa.
Absolutely. And because everybody will have their opinion. His mom will have her opinion. My mom will have her opinion. My sister will have. No, this is our lives, right? This is our relationship. If you have your opinion, actually, I was going to say I'll listen to it, but I don't even listen to it. You know,
she really doesn't.
No, because I'm not married into that. I'm not married or part of his family on a day-to-day basis. Yes, we respect families, but I don't want you to live my life.
But I think also, you know, Shalini came from a place where she'd been estranged from her family for many years, right? So some of the adjustments that I was making when we first got together are adjustments that she had to make at 21 because of the situation she found herself at that time. So when we first got together, she was already in a space where she'd kind of made that shift.
Been
there, done that. So that was also a little bit of balancing that needed to be done. A little bit of adjustment.
Yeah, I hate that word, adjust, because all Indian women have to adjust, right? What is that? But I think also I'm not very good at doing it pole. I'm like, rip the Band-Aid off. So I was like, what is the problem? You know, just tell your family that you're with me. And he was like, no, I have to take it step by step. And I was just like,
we're both coaches, right? And so you see this sometimes. We never talk about our clients specifically, but Shalini as a coach is very much just do it. Like, why? What are you waiting for? And I'm very much, well, you've got to figure out your way and you've got to plan it, and it'll take a little bit of time and you'll get there. So yeah, that was also a little bit of difference between us.
Our coaching style is very, very different. But I think it works because, I'm very much like, why haven't you done it yet? You know, we talked about this 3 weeks ago. Get on with it. Life is short. What are we waiting for? Whereas Ammar is like, okay, consider this, consider that. I'm like, it's too much. But it works for us, I think.
It
and
does.
I think we have come to a good place as far as communication
Great
is.
place.
So
I think communication is crucial.
It's crucial.
Right?
It's crucial.
Like how you have the family dynamics, we also have the kids in our dynamics, right?
I don't know how you do it, Zia.
And yes, it changes the game a little bit, but like you said, like if we don't prioritize each other, the kids are going to suffer.
Exactly.
Or the kids are going to like end up interfering into our lives, and then we're going to lose each other in trying to just manage the kids. So I feel like it makes it harder, like one level up harder, because then we have to, think about the family, think about friends, but also think about the kids. And kids are great humans to raise, but they take a toll on a relationship, like really hard.
They're all consuming, aren't they?
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And I feel like in the initial, like first 4 to 5 years of a child's life, they need all our attention, and it's so easy to just get swiped away in just trying to like have the kid as the center of the attention in our relationship. And then there's so many marriages that break after having kids because of not having that time before having had kids, or not getting to know each other beforehand. But also afterwards, you lose your priorities. Like you forget that, okay, your husband or your wife has to be at the top, and then everyone else. Because if that person is not happy, none of the other people that come through there are going to be happy.
I think we see that a lot in our clients, right? What's happened is the children have come into the equation and they've lost the relationship. The husband and wife or the partners have lost the relationship that they have before the children come in. Now, children are going to grow up. They're going to leave the house. Then you're going to have an empty nest. And that's often when the relationship falls apart, because now you haven't got anything common to hold on to. So as you say, if you don't continue to nurture that relationship, you will lose it. And as much as your children are important and they are dependent on you, you have to find that connection with each other above and beyond where the children come into it. Because otherwise you'll find that you've got nothing left at the end.
Because I also feel like with kids, with every child, we grow as humans. We change over the years anyways, whether a kid is there or not there. We grow as humans, and if we are so self-absorbed in trying to keep with our families, friends, kids, whatever, we kind of stop knowing each other.
Exactly.
Right? And then when the kids leave, or when the friends leave, or when the family is away, you're like, who are you? Like, you know, what have you turned into? I don't even know this person anymore.
And I think COVID brought that to light, because suddenly couples were in the same house together, and they were like, I don't even know you, and I don't even like you. We're getting divorced. The divorce rate went through the roof around the world.
Because they had to face each other's realities
every day. So,
I don't think it's just about kids though, right? I think as human beings, we all evolve over time. And I think, again, that comes back to why communication is so important. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago, and neither is Shalini. And we probably won't be the same people 5 years from now.
Totally.
So if we don't keep that constant connection, that constant communication, then we will lose each other along the way. And I think that's why that piece of communication that we had to work on so hard early in our relationship has served us really well. And I think will continue to serve us really well.
But I think also it's realizing that you're not just changing as people, you're growing together. And that's fun, right? Because we're discovering things together, we're learning things together. And even when we're learning things separately, by sharing that growth is really important. And that's what's really exciting.
Yeah, so that was one of the points that I was going to raise. Like, the success of a relationship, I feel like, depends on growing together.
Completely.
But also growing individually.
Completely.
I feel like sometimes, like, you lose the person there, and you've grown so much that you can't relate to that person anymore. And then you're like, but I have changed so much. And I can't relate to that person that is still there, not willing to do the work, not willing to grow, not just as a couple, but even individually.
It reminds me, I attended one of my best friends from boarding school. His parents had an anniversary dinner when I was about 18 or 19. And I went along to it, and the best man from the wedding gave a speech, and he said something along the lines of, you know, people say that a couple becomes one and that's the best way to be. And he said, I disagree completely. And with Nick and Anne, what I see is two people who've become three people rather than becoming one person. And I thought that was really lovely because you maintain your individual identity, your individual personality, but then you still come together. And it reminds me of the Khalil Gibran quote, I think, which says, you know, the columns of the temple don't stand too close together nor too far apart, because in either way, the temple will fall. And I think it's just a lovely image to think about.
That's so beautiful.
I told you were smart.
You found a good one.
I did. When I look at talking exactly about the same thing, but on an energetic level, because we are all energy, it's quite interesting. When we meet, we're at an energy. Sorry, I go.
I start laughing because this is like
the woo bit. But we meet. There's an energy when we meet, right? And we're almost at that same vibration. And what happens over time is, with growth, you are changing the vibration and hopefully increasing your vibration.
Totally.
If one part of the couple increases and the other one does not and stays behind, that relationship will not work. They have to in some way raise their vibration as well. And sometimes we help to raise, right? It's not just, oh, do it on your own.
Yeah.
It's teamwork. But you have to consistently build it so that that energy level is equal. And you're constantly working towards that and raising your vibrations, because you cannot continue to stay in the lower vibrations. I truly believe that's what makes a good relationship as well. He's laughing because when I start talking energy, he's like, oh, wow. It's very practical.
No, but I feel like it's our responsibility as individuals to grow.
Yeah.
Individually again, but also together. And that's the only way to survive through the ups and downs of the relationship.
Yeah, because life is hard and life throws you all kinds of things. It's how do you as a team manage that?
But also accepting the differences, and the energy conversation is an interesting one, because often Shalini will turn around to me and say, how come you just accept all this crazy stuff that I'm telling you? In my mind, crazy. For a lot of people, not. And for her, definitely not. But I don't think we necessarily have to all believe in the same things. We don't need to have the same religion. We don't need to have the same politics. We don't need to have the same spirituality. And I think we can accept the differences, but still move along in tandem together.
Totally. I love that. Even with our relationship, my husband doesn't understand social media.
Yeah.
And he's like, why are you taking photos of everything you're eating? It's like, I just don't get it. Like, the world has to eat before you eat. I'm like, you don't get it, you know? But he's like, it's okay. If it helps you, you do it. And now he'll be like, should I take a photo of you? I'm like, look at what has happened, you know?
We're there as well. He's like, okay, let's take a selfie. I was like, what?
So it's nice to accept each other's unique preferences and passions and ideologies, as long as you have some in common that is keeping you going and thriving in a relationship, right?
It's really interesting because he's an atheist, like he thinks when we die, that's it. And I'm like talking about past lives and what's going to happen in the future and the Akashic records. And he's like...
She keeps telling me that one day she'll up there tell me that she was right.
I'll say, look,
we'll see.
When we're both up there dead, I'll say, see, I told you, so it's not just black. It's not just dark. So, and past lives, you can't get your head around that. I just did Akashic Records training recently, and you were just like, what's that about? So yeah, it's just, I love it.
It's a good thing I'm a science fiction.
Whoa! Cheeky.
Each to their own. I'm not going to comment on that. So I know you mentioned a little bit about how you went through the process of your grief. What are the other ways that you were able to grieve the loss and overcome it?
So the first year of grieving was really, I just locked myself away in my house. I was a recluse. I hardly went out. I used to go out and just teach my dance classes and come back. I would sleep like 3-4 hours. I drank a lot. I abused painkillers. I ate a lot. I watched a lot of TV. And I just literally, and I actually tried to take my life a couple of times in that year. And then after my dad's funeral, I decided I was going to live again. And I think once you decide that life is a gift and it is yours to live, my whole mindset changed. And I started exercising, eating well. I started seeing a therapist. And then I wrote my first book, actually, Always With You, which is a memoir. That's Jeremy. And that's me there. And I talk about how I fell in love with him and how the estrangement from the family, and then also his cancer, and then the bereavement. And I talk about spirituality in that as well. And that was a big part of my grieving because it was very cathartic to get it out onto paper. So, and then I started online dating, which was another crazy, I was prolific. So in 7 months, I think I spoke to something like 50 guys. I dated 20 guys. It was, I thought if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this properly. And I jumped in. And then I wrote a book about that as well.
Which I read before we started dating, by the way.
It's I talk about it quite a lot. Yeah, it's another story. But that was part of the grieving. And when I look back on that, it wasn't the healthiest way of grieving, but it was my way of grieving. Yeah. I still grieve. This will never end. Grief is it's relentless. It holds you like in this vice-like grip that just takes you down, and you have to find your way back up. I still have pain in my heart. When Jeremy first died, it was like a piercing pain. I literally felt like my heart was breaking. Now, when I talk about him occasionally, I talk about him in a much lighter way. He's definitely a part of me, a part of my life. On occasions like his birthday or our wedding anniversary or his death anniversary, I feel a pain, but the pain is different in the heart. It's like an ache, and I like that because it shows that I still love him and he still loves me and he'll always be part of me. I still grieve him. I'll hear a song or I'll see something, a film, and I'll think of him, or we'll go on safari and I'll think about him taking photographs. So I still grieve him every day in some way, but it's different. It's definitely a process. It's not all consuming. And I now feel able to continue to live life and move forward. So you never move on from somebody, you move forward with your life. And I'm so grateful that I am with somebody to do life with, because life is hard and it's fun together. And I love being in love, and I love having somebody to, one of the things, when Jeremy died, the thing I would forget was, not forget, but the thing I really missed was really simple things like the key in the door that he was home, or the cup of tea on the bedside, or just saying, oh, I'll tell Jeremy that. Now I can say, oh, I'm going to tell Ammar that. I can't wait to tell Ammar that. So sharing life and doing life together is just, I feel very grateful that I've found love again. There are many people who don't even find love once in this lifetime. So how lucky am I to have found love again?
Well, very lucky.
I'm changing my mind rapidly, let me tell you. But that's where I'm at with grieving. I think you don't finish grieving, you never stop grieving. You just grieve differently. And some people will grieve the loss of their loved one for the rest of their lives. You know, some women or men will never find somebody else. That's a choice. I believe that's a choice as well. When I met Ammar, I was ready to live. I was open-hearted. I was open-minded. But not everybody's like that.
You did freak out, though.
Are we really telling that story? Go on, then, you started. Yeah, go on.
Well, the first time I told her that I was falling in love with her, she freaked out. It was quite interesting.
I was like, oh my gosh, no, you can't say that. It's too early. Well, it was only like a month in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's your... Yeah, I freaked out because it was very soon, but yeah. I made you wait another 2 months before I told you. So.
You guys are so sweet, make me emotional. But thank you for sharing that. I feel like it's really, grief is something like, I feel like it's the most painful thing that we feel. And like you said, it doesn't end. It's just keeps coming in periods of times and in batches, you know. And
different, it's not the same grief all the time. It's not, and we all grieve, right? We all grieve the loss of a loved one, the loss of a pet, the loss of a job. We all grieved collectively during COVID because we lost freedom. We lost even loss of our youth. As we get older, we're losing something. We lose something every day. So we're actually grieving every day. Yeah. We just don't realize it. Totally. And it's maybe not as intense as losing a loved one.
And it shows up in different ways. I feel like it's either the guilt or like not having that anymore kind of thing. Or like, again, like I'm getting old. Like, you know, I'm losing my youth vitality again. Yeah.
So that's all grief.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. So like Ammar explained his challenges when he got into a relationship. What were your challenges when you guys started a relationship?
I think it was the guilt mostly. And I also never wanted for him to feel that I was comparing him and Jeremy.
Which I did.
Which he absolutely did.
Not because necessarily she made me feel it, but that's just how I felt.
Yeah, so there was that. I thought I'd already had love, and I had kind of got Jeremy to a place that I liked. You know, I talk about training men. I had to start all over again. So I was like, oh my God, this is like hard work. But I don't know, I think I didn't want to go through it all to begin with. I wanted it to be, I didn't want to do having a relationship is work.
Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
But I think I rapidly realized that it was worth it, because who was I getting? I was getting this amazing guy that I was going to spend life with. So yeah, I think that was the initial challenge. I also was ready to travel the world on my own, so I didn't want to be stuck in Nairobi. And you knew this, and I think I am now in Nairobi, between Nairobi and Nanyuki, thankfully. But I think that was the challenge that I really, and then I was very worried about his family. Muindi boy, Nairobi Muindi boy, what was it going to be like? I felt like we would always have interference from families.
I don't know. I think there was some part of Shalini when we first started talking and even first started dating. I think you liked the idea of family to begin with, but then I think you found the reality of it really hard. But again, we've now got to a place where it works really well, right?
Yeah.
We kind of spend time with each other's families when we can, when we want to, and it's a good place that we're at. But I think those initial, you kind of were like, this is what I'm looking for, and then you were like, oh my God, what have I asked for?
Yeah, I actually manifested, Ammar. So when after Jeremy died and I was going to travel the world, I was like, okay, now if I meet somebody, but I'm not looking, I want a nice, probably I wanted somebody from our culture, because I hadn't had that with Jeremy. But that was in itself beautiful, because he taught me all about British culture and I taught him all about Kenyan Indian culture. But I wanted somebody who I didn't have to explain the
Why?
references.
Yeah.
The fact that Ammar was very British in his sensibilities, having studied there, but very Muindi, Kenyan Muindi as well. I loved it. I wanted somebody who had a defender. Imagine, this is what I was thinking. And who went on safari and who was very family oriented and who was a businessman. And I got all of that. And I loved all of it except the family thing. I didn't realize what family meant, that it was so in your face kind of thing. So that I was like, okay, we need to figure this out. It's not working. But everything else, I got the defender and...
But the guy who likes going camping, which you were like not going to do.
I did not manifest that. That was like not happening. I don't do camping, so we don't do camping. Yeah, so I think and because I hadn't had family for so long, that's what I thought I wanted. But the reality is I don't. I actually just, and that's actually when Jeremy died, it was really hard because we were a team and we didn't need anyone else. So when he died, I was completely alone. It's different here. I still don't feel like I need anyone else, but Ammar does. He feels like he needs more family and friends. So that's still a negotiation. We still work at it. Less, I think.
I think we found a good balance.
We found a good balance. But I could be like not see anyone for 10 days if I'm in the cabin in Nanyuki and I'm okay.
And I'm much more of a people person. Yeah. So again, balance, right? And accepting those differences and then finding a way to navigate them.
Yeah, opposites somehow find a way to work it out.
We do work it out. Yeah, but Ammar starts literally getting cabin fever. Whereas if somebody comes into my space, I'm very happy not having people in my space. Because we both work, our work is very people oriented, right? I'm a healer, you're a coach as well as a business executive. So our work is very much about people. So when I'm not working, I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy not seeing people.
Totally, yeah. And talking about family, like how was it like telling your families about it, and were they like okay to accept the fact that you guys didn't want to get married and be okay with you guys being together and your family accepting her?
My dad takes credit for our relationship. Our very first meeting, he was like, do you remember Ashok Uncle's daughter? She's written a book. She wants to get it printed. I was working in the family business, which is a printing press. Have a meeting with her, have a meeting with her, have a meeting with her. And we eventually had a meeting about work, which turned into a...
No. Let me tell you the story. So Ammar said, your dad has said, because I wanted to print this book here in Kenya. And I want to print it through your family business. And he said, I can only give you half an hour. I'm very busy.
I was.
So he said, and meet me at this cafe in Riverside. So I was all ready to go then. And 20 minutes before I leave the house, I'm not there. I'm at Art Cafe at Westgate. Come and meet me there. I mean...
Please. There was a please.
But I can only give you half an hour. So I turned up. I looked at the bee's knees. I made sure. And I got there and I thought I only have half an hour. And I said, look, this is my book and I want to get it printed here. 4 hours later.
Ooh.
Something obviously you didn't, your meetings are obviously not that important. Do you want to pick up the story? Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, my dad takes that credit. And I think my parents were really happy. Again, I'd never really brought anyone home, I think maybe once. In the early days, like a lot of Asian parents in Kenya had been, when are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? Meet so-and-so, uncle so-and-so's daughter and aunt so-and-so's niece and all the rest of it. But I was never willing to kind of settle. So I think when I finally found the person that I wanted to spend my life with, they were very happy. Then we had that period of adjustment where my priorities were changing. And at the time, the family was going through a lot as well. So there was a lot of change happening as a family. So lots of adjustment. But I think now we're in a really good place. We visit my family fairly regularly. Shalini has a good relationship with them. They, I think, really respect her. They respect our relationship. We're in a good place.
But it took a while.
It took
really
a little bit of time.
I think the family felt I was pulling him away from them. You didn't say how half an hour became 4 hours. You changed all your meetings that day. But anyway, we'll leave that. On my side, my aunt and extended family have accepted Ammar. They didn't accept Jeremy all those years ago. My mother doesn't accept us because she doesn't like the fact that we're not married.
Yeah.
She's Christian and has very strong beliefs around marriage. So I'm not in touch with her because she did not accept my first relationship all those years ago, and I won't let that mistake happen again in my life. So she either has to accept us and accept our choices, or not. And if she doesn't, then she can't be part of our lives. So I'm very unapologetic about that. My sister, accepts us, and in fact, when I broke up with Ammar because of what was going on, the family and stuff, she said, "What are you doing? He's lovely. Why have you broken?" And she took his side.
Most people do.
Yeah, not true. So again, I feel like I'm putting our relationship first. And that's hard, again, going back to that whole Indian culture, how can you not speak to your mom? You have to understand this is our lives.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to make the right decision for yourself.
Yeah.
And not think about the others in the picture.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
It's
Not
very
everyone
hard.
understands that because they think, okay, they're your parents and they're the ones that have raised you and everything. But I feel like at some point your parents have raised you so that you can make the right decision for yourself.
Yeah.
And they should be able to let that go.
And and if it's the wrong decision, it's yours to make.
Exactly.
Right?
And you will deal with it yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it works both ways, right? Because I think if you say you should accept that your parents are a certain way, then surely parents should accept their children are a certain way.
Yeah, true.
And I've seen it in my extended family, this really sad situation where because someone hasn't towed a particular imaginary line in the sand, they're somehow cut off, or they're made persona non grata, or they're not fully part of the family. Or, sometimes it's the money thing, right? And people falling out over money, and that affects relationships. And so we like to, I think, as a society, speak about familial relationships like they're sacrosanct and shouldn't be broken. But then we're very picky about what it's okay to fight over and break up over, right? It's okay to do it over money, but it's not okay to do it over love in a relationship. Like, doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so true. It's complicated.
It's actually as complicated as you want it to be. I'm actually quite black and white, and Ammar knows this, and I think that was actually something we had to work on, because I'm very much, look, this is right and this is wrong. This is how I want to live my life, and this is how I choose to. So I'm much more black and white than you are. I think you're much more...
True, but I think if given the choice, you would choose for it to be another way, right?
Sure, but the fact it's not,
yeah,
this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Just deal with the cards.
Yeah.
Like.
And I think we make life more complicated than it should be. And life is tough enough. I think we need to stop making it as complicated as we do. I really do. I think we've got to stop with all the nonsense drama and all the listening to what will people say, what will people think. Who cares, right? Really, who cares? They'll talk about you for all of 5 minutes and then they'll move on to the next person. the fact that we're not married was a big deal in the community for a while. I'm like, who cares? You're not paying our bills. You're not paying my therapist bills. You're not putting food on our table.
Yeah.
So whether we're married or not, that's not your issue. Whether we want to have kids or not, that's not your issue, right? Our choices, our lives. So I'm much more black and white, and I also am much more. I'm just not very. I suffer fools. What's that saying? I suffer fools gladly. I don't suffer fools. Don't suffer fools gladly. I just don't want to hear your opinion. And that's hard in the Indian community because we are brought up, you know this, as a child we were brought up to be the good girls. Women are brought up to be people pleasers, right? You will not say anything. You will do as I say. You stand, you sit, you go to work, you don't go to work. You have children, you don't have children. All decided by families, by men. No, this is our lives. I refuse to people please. I refuse to live life on your terms. And that's just, we don't talk about that enough.
I love that. I feel like I deal with this on a daily basis with my parents.
Yeah.
My mom calls me like, why are you doing this? Why are you putting this on social media? And I'm like, people are going to say this. People are going to be jealous. And I'm like, I'm not living life for anyone else. You know, like whether I do good or bad, they're going to talk because it's their job to talk. It's their job to judge. It's their job to gossip. But I'm like, if I try to start dictating my life based on what they're saying, I will always be like being tossed around. Because one person will be like, no, you should do this. This is nice. And then the other person will be like, no, this is wrong. And I'm like, so what about me?
Yeah.
No one's living my life actually. No one's wearing my shoes.
Exactly.
And no one knows exactly how I'm maintaining my relationships or what I'm doing. Like, you don't know behind the scenes as well, right?
No.
You're just judging plainly on what you see and what you perceive from what you see. And all the perception depends on what your mindset is like.
But also what's going on in your life that allows you to judge, or what's not happening in your life, right? Which family doesn't have issues in their extended family relationships? Which couple doesn't have issues that they need to deal with? Which person doesn't have problems that they're dealing with?
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone's in a position to judge anyone else, really.
Yeah, totally.
I think, but also, Zia, I think you might relate to this. Men and women are treated very differently in our cultures, whether it's the African culture or Indian culture, Kenyan culture. Women are treated very differently. Men are always treated, they can do no wrong. It's okay. They can do what they like. If they say something, it's okay. He's a guy.
Grown up with this.
Yeah. Whereas a woman is we are put into boxes. Yeah. You are
subjected to so many restrictions.
So many rules and restrictions. And we're like, okay, you're this man's daughter, then you become this man's wife, then you become this boy's mother. Literally, that's what our And I'm saying, no, enough's enough. We're our own people. And I'm seeing it in Kenya actually a lot. I saw it a lot in the UK, women like refusing to be part of that stereotype. Yeah. I'm seeing it in Kenya now. Kenyan women are just like, we've had enough. Yeah. We are our own people. And what's happening in society now is men are struggling. They don't know their place, right? Mm. So we're having I feel that it's a rocky time in society in Kenya today because women are like, enough's enough. Yeah. And for so long, the patriarchy has ruled, and that's changing. And men are finding it hard. Even in business, women are finding their footing a lot more. It's a really exciting time.
Some of them are turning out smarter than men.
They are smarter. Yeah. But I believe it's the rise of the feminine, right? Totally. I really do. And I think that's globally. If you look like at Mexico, a new president, a female president, look at America. I think we're beginning to see the rise of the feminine. And I'm excited by that because I think for too long, we have been dominated by men. We have been told you have to do this by the patriarchy. Yeah. So I'm excited. Let's see. I see change in our lifetime, but let's see.
There's a new way of the world coming in.
Exactly.
Totally.
It's exciting.
I completely believe that.
Yeah. That's not to put down men.
Yeah, for
no,
sure.
not at all. And I think change is definitely happening. I think in some instances or many instances, change is needed. I do think that the place of men in society has been much more fluid in recent years, and people do struggle with it. And I think you see it in all angles. I do think that, and coming from a family business background, I do think that a lot of men within or coming from that background, again, whether that's African culture or Indian culture, perhaps aren't as free as they seem to be from the outside in some to some extent they have freedom, and perhaps more freedom than their sisters or their wives. But I do think that men also get trapped. And so, yeah, it's interesting, right? How as men do we also claim our space without
being dominating?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do we find that balance?
Yeah.
And I think it is, at the end of the day, all about balance.
Yeah. I think it's about like understanding like where is it that my toxic masculinity is coming out, and where can women stop being this hyper masculine and like start embracing their feminine and allow the man to protect and lead them, right? I think it's also a change in us that we need to accept and allow that. For too long, we've been forced to be these strong women, like trying to have everything under control.
Yeah.
And then that's leading us to a lot of issues as well, I feel like.
Yeah, I think for a long time it was implied that if you didn't have a career, you didn't have a marriage, you didn't have children, you're
not
as
enough.
a woman, you are not enough.
Yeah.
You can have you're a woman, you can have it all, right?
Yeah.
But actually, so what it does is makes you step into your masculine, which is that's where the clashes happen, right?
Yeah.
I am very, very strong in my feminine. I don't need to go into my masculine. So what I want women to do is to be strong in their feminine.
Yeah, totally.
And I love it. That we had this conversation the other day. I love the fact that he opens the car door for me, or that when I'm crying, he's holding me, or because I need that. And at the same time, I support him in different ways. So instead of stepping into our masculine to be strong, it's to allow the feminine to be strong.
Strengthen what we are naturally meant to be.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think the fact that we say we can have it all, in whose eyes are we looking that you can only be a successful woman if you have children, have a full-time job, are this domestic goddess? In whose eyes are we asking to be validated? And again, we need to turn away from society and family and the patriarchy and say, as long as in my eyes, I'm okay. As long as in our eyes, we're good. Yeah. That for me is all that matters. Yeah. I don't care what society or family or religion I don't care. Yeah. Because I know that as long as I am strong and we are strong, and success in my eyes is not having the career. Actually, success in my eyes is having freedom of time. Totally. That's actually my idea of success. And I only learned that after Jeremy died, because I was very successful in my career. And now, if I can spend the afternoon watching Netflix on my terms, that to me is a success.
That's so amazing. Like you being able to create that awareness and then work that in the relationship. Yeah. Because again, like how I was saying before, like we need to do the work individually. So it's about you embracing your feminine, being strong in your feminine, him being strong in his masculine is when you can come together and build something long-lasting and something that is successful. Yeah. So doing that work on yourself is crucial, right? My last question before we close. I know she already said that she doesn't believe in marriage and doesn't want to have kids. What were your thoughts? Like, was that something that you also always wanted, or it's something that you had to adapt to?
So growing up, it's something I always wanted, right? I wanted to get married. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to have a family. And I think that's part of why not having been in a relationship was so difficult for me. But when I got to 40, or close to 40, I started thinking about this, right? Is this something that's going to be on the cards for me? And there was a little bit of an existential angst that I had to go through. And one of the things that I did was decided to have conversations with both male and female friends about parenthood, right? What is it about this parenthood thing? And long story short, but at the end of all of that, what I came to realize that actually the desire for having children wasn't something I had thought about. It's just something that I'd kind of gone along with. And there came a point where I realized that I didn't actually want kids. I wanted the freedom of being able to run my life as I wanted. I didn't want the financial or the other burdens or responsibilities. And at the time, I was in a family business. I'd taken on a lot of responsibility for the family, financial and otherwise. The business was going through a really difficult situation. I was leading it through a turnaround. And so I was caught up with all of this overwhelming sense of being burdened with responsibility. And through that, I kind of realized this is not something I would choose for the rest of my life. So when we met, I was very clear that I didn't want kids. So that was never really an issue.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'd kind of realized that marriage wasn't that important for me. The piece of paper. That said, when we finally got together, you know, there was a sense that, yeah, this would be something that with this person, actually I'd be happy to do and to get married. We've agreed it's not something that we are going to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, growing up, I thought I would want it all. I'm very happy with what I've ended up with, because actually having thought about it, this is what I would have chosen.
For me, it was at 16, I knew I didn't want children. Wow. So when I met Jeremy and he already had kids from his first marriage, it suited me perfectly. My parents were a little bit not happy because they thought at 21 to say I'm not going to have kids. And then when Ammar said he didn't want kids, I said, you know, this is it. I'm actually too old to have kids and I'm not going to. Are you sure? And I think we understood that. For me, marriage is, again, very much a patriarchal institution. It's society and legal in many ways. Jeremy and I did get married after he was diagnosed with cancer, because when he died, if I wasn't married to him, I would have had no legal rights on his body, on the funeral, on the house, I would have had to pay inheritance tax. So as much as our wedding day it was just 6 of us at the registry office, it was special. It was also illegal because I'd been with him 17 years.
Yeah.
So with Ammar, I think we've talked about it, and marriage I don't like conventional either. I'm not a conventional person. I don't want to do it conventionally. If we did something, it would be a big party and a commitment to each other, not legally, not religiously, it would just be what we want. So I think my message to everybody out there when you're having a relationship is, don't always look at the conventional. Getting married, having children, that's one way. But there are other ways to have a relationship.
Yeah, I think it boils down to choice. And I think we all should individually and in our relationships realize that it boils down to choice. We have the freedom to choose what we want our relationship to look like. We have the freedom to choose what we want our lives to look like. And this is how we've chosen for ourselves. It's not right for everyone else, but it's right for us. And that's the only thing that's important.
Totally, whatever works for you. Right?
Yeah, it's about, I think that's a great message. It's about choice. Choose what works for you and your partner. And don't worry about what society and family and people will say. Choose what's right for you.
Yeah, totally. Great, thank you. That was a great way to end it with solid advice. Thank you for being here and thank you for sharing so openly. That was a really good conversation. But before we end, I generally ask like a few rapid fire questions so that the audience can get to know you a little better.
Oh gosh, okay.
Are you asking both of us so we both answer?
Yeah, whoever wants to answer.
Okay.
You can choose. Both of you will have to answer. What's your one non-negotiable habit to keep thriving in your relationship?
Talking to each other.
And keeping Sundays for each other. We very rarely give our Sundays up for other people, families. Yeah, that's non-negotiable.
Nice. How do you choose to express love to your other half?
I think it's in the little things for me. Making cups of tea, opening doors, rubbing her feet. It's little things.
Acts of service. Like that's what you like expressing your love.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And you?
I was just thinking, oh my gosh, he does so much for me. What do I do for him? Validation definitely is a big deal, is a big thing. Telling him, especially with work and at home, that he's doing great. You're definitely much more about gifts as well. You'll give me gifts a lot. And touch. You know, we talk about the five languages of love. Yeah, I think touch as well.
Do you like to receive love the same way?
So much. He loves being in love. I love the fact that he'll just show up with flowers because he likes giving flowers. And I think we both love being in love. I think it's, yeah.
You guys are like little young lovebirds.
We're not. We're in our 40s.
In 5 years' time.
I'm on my 50th year of this on this earth.
You don't look it, don't worry. What's the cutest thing he's done for you?
Oh, cutest thing. Okay, so when he went to Mauritius, there's an insect. When he went to Mauritius, he did loads of shopping for me. He'd gone on a business trip and I wasn't expecting it. And he bought like a dream catcher for me and some jewelry. And it's just, yeah, it's things that, there's so many things. Like, I can't, yeah. What do you think?
about you?
The cutest thing that she's done for me, that's a tough one.
Maybe I haven't done anything.
No,
I
you do
have
loads. You do loads for me, but nothing comes to mind immediately. I think, actually, this is it, right? When we're in Nanuki and it's just the two of us, and she's going to kill me for saying this because Shalini hates to cook. She hates to be in the kitchen. She hates the idea that people
I don't cook.
see her as kind of domestic. But when we're in Nanuki and I'm working remotely from there, she will take care of everything in the house. She'll cook. She'll bring me cups of tea randomly while I'm on work calls, and yeah, that always means a lot.
Oh, that is really cute.
I hate cooking. You know how much I hate cooking.
What's your favorite date night activity?
We love going out for dinner.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
just trying out
foodies.
new.
Yeah,
We're real
me too.
foodies. Yeah, and Ammar comes from a really foodie family. My father was in restaurant business here in Kenya. We went to Bali. We loved eating.
Oh yeah, I was watching your
Yeah,
stories.
so we just love food, and we're so lucky in Kenya. We have so many restaurants and so many amazing restaurants. So for us, date night we'll always go out to eat somewhere new.
But you should talk about A to Z dating.
Oh yeah, we did A to Z dating in 2024, where we did
Well, we're still
something
doing
starting
it.
A to Z, and A was Aberdare Country
I
Club, and you
remember
know
that, yeah.
yeah, so that was a lot of fun, and it kept things interesting because it meant that we did something different every time.
But we also had to take it in turns, right? So it wasn't like Shalini was organizing it and I was coming along for the ride.
I was A, he
I
was
had to
B.
find something to do for B and so on. So that was really good fun.
Yeah, that's really
And we did things that we hadn't done since childhood, like giraffe center for G. So that was really fun. Yeah.
And so did you do it like monthly or?
Yeah, it was
Or
every
when-
2 weeks.
Every 2
It
weeks?
works
Wow,
out
that's
really
a-
well, right? Because 26 letters in the alphabet, 52
52
weeks in the year. So every 2 weeks is a different letter.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's really cool. So last one. What's your one advice to someone struggling in relationships? You can start.
You want me to start? Okay, so I'm quite radical. One, go for the counseling. Find a good therapist or counselor. Two, start communicating with each other and seeing. Three, if it's not working and you really don't want to be with this person, there's no shame in splitting up. So whether that's a split or a divorce, do not flog a dead horse. So definitely do the work. Definitely try and salvage what you can. But if it's not working for you too, split.
I think for me, it's communication and not shying away from the hard conversations. I think too often we avoid the hard conversation and the outcome is worse than if we'd had the conversation in the first place.
Yeah, that is really powerful. Communication is the key.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah.
It's really important. We wouldn't be together if it wasn't for communication.
Totally.
And actually just telling each other how we feel and what's not working or what is working. It's key.
And being vulnerable, right? Especially for guys. I think it's really hard, and it was for me also, to be vulnerable in those emotions and those feelings and in that communication. So I think for the guys out there, if you're having a conversation with your significant other, don't be afraid to open up, because I think that's the key.
Yeah, I think it's really hard for men to do that, but it makes a lot of difference in a relationship. Totally. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so
Zia.
much, Zia. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you.
They're red perfectly for your lovebirds.
Thank you so
Amazing.
much.
Thank
That's
you.
lovely. Thank you. And I've got you this book.
Thank you.
So
Oh,
that's for you.
thanks. I can't wait to read it. Today's my last day of work, so I'm getting
You've
on
got
this
time.
book.
Perfect. Thank you for these. They're
Thank you
beautiful.
for
And thank you for the
being
opportunity to share our story.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It was a pleasure.
Even for someone who's not into social media.
It was a pleasure to have you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that was really powerful. Thank you for watching yet another episode of Wellness Deconstructed with me. Remember, like, comment, share, and subscribe, because your support means everything to us. A big thank you to our gift sponsor who gave us beautiful flowers for our guest, Maridadi Mawa. We appreciate your contribution. Until we meet next time, keep prioritizing your well-being.